So, FBI Director James Comey was hated by everybody on the left, absolutely everybody, until the Democrats found out that Trump fired him. Then, of course, he became their favorite person in the world, and he was great, and he should have stayed along. It was totally ridiculous, total hypocrisy coming from the Democrats. Nothing new, of course, but it's definitely on full display right now, and it is really being ratcheted up to a whole new level. This was a complete 180, a complete flip-flop, 100%. There was nothing gradual about it. It was, you literally had Hillary Clinton with it, within the last week or so, and John Podesta coming out and saying that James Comey basically cost Hillary Clinton the election and should be fired. Then Trump actually fires him, and all of a sudden, it's a Russian cover-up. And this point gets illustrated very well in an InfoWars article. So, from InfoWars, Lester Holt, Trump makes a fair point about Democrat hypocrisy on Comey. NBC News anchor Lester Holt said following his interview with the president that Trump handed him papers with around 20 quotes from Democrats slamming former FBI Director James Comey prior to his firing this week. This morning, Holt presented the document to the Today, quote, hosts, describing it as a, quote, 5 pages of quotes of Democrats who have been critical of Comey. Quote, a few calling for his resignation, calling for his firing, being critical, Holt noted. There are about 20 quotes here, but the president wanted me to have that, and it makes a fair point that a lot of Democrats were not happy with Comey either, many believing that he torpedoed Hillary Clinton's chances, Holt added. Since his firing, Comey has begun leaking details of a private dinner with Trump during which he refused to pledge personal loyalty to the president 3 times. The White House disputes the report, with Huckabee Sanders saying, "We don't believe this to be an accurate account. The integrity of our law enforcement agencies and their leadership is of the utmost importance to President Trump. He would never even suggest the expectation of personal loyalty, only loyalty to our country and its great people," the acting press secretary added. And of course, there's no corroboration to that whatsoever. It's just a baseless accusation being thrown out there by the media, again, as usual. After describing Comey as a, quote, showboat and a grandstander during the interview with Holt, Trump himself today tweeted, quote, James Comey, better hope there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press. So it sounds like there might actually be recordings of the conversations between Comey and President Trump. And they may have had that just in case Comey wanted to start leaking, false accusations or something of the sort, which appears like that actually might be exactly what's happening. So some pretty crazy stuff going on behind the scenes right now in the White House. For sure, one thing that's worth noting, Comey this kind of got buried in all the craziness of the news, but Comey did come out and say that Trump did have absolutely the right to fire him, and that he holds the belief that a president should be able to fire an FBI director for any reason or for no reason. And this was Comey himself that said that after he got fired. A funny thing to note about Comey getting fired, apparently he was actually doing he was actually giving a speech and to his FBI workers, and apparently he saw on the news television screens in the background the news flashing that he had been fired, and that was apparently actually how he found out that he got fired. The speech getting cut off short after that, he got pulled aside and told he was actually fired, and given the letter from Trump and everything at that point. But just pretty hilarious if that's true, that he actually found out he got fired by seeing it in the news in the background of his speech. That's just pretty delicious right there, I gotta say. So, there's a lot of controversy going on right now with the fact that Comey got fired. The Democrat hypocrisy is on full blast. The fake news is on full blast, and it is definitely going overtime. So one little bit of fake news that got put out there was that they were saying, some people in the media and others were saying that Comey had requested more funding for the probe into Russia before he got fired. Because, of course, that's the whole concept being pushed by the Democrats, is that Comey got fired to cover up the Russia investigation because Comey was just getting so close to figuring out what was going on, and, finding a tie between Trump and Russia, and really just, cracking the whole case and, bringing all these Russian scum to justice, of course. And it turns out that's not the case at all. So this is from MSN.com. Acting FBI director vows to inform congressional committee if White House tries to upend Russia probe. Acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe vowed Thursday that he would tell the Senate Intelligence Committee if the White House tried to interfere with the Bureau's probe of possible coordination between the Kremlin and the Trump campaign to influence the 2016 presidential election, though he asserted that there had been, quote, no effort to impede our investigation to date. McCabe made these statements at a public hearing with top U.S. intelligence officials before the Senate Intelligence Committee, a hearing that has taken on new significance since Trump suddenly removed James Comey from the FBI's top post. He said he would also not provide updates to President Trump or anyone else in the White House about the status of the probe, nor had anyone yet asked. So you've got the acting FBI director right now coming out and saying that Trump did not try to impede the investigation in any way at all during the course of the investigation, which is one accusation that is being thrown out there. And then, of course, the other one is that that Comey requested more funding for the Russian investigation, which also is fake news. And this is from the Daily Wire. Fake news! Acting FBI director says no new funding requested for Trump-Russia probe before Comey firing. After the New York Times set off a flurry of rumors by reporting that FBI Director James Comey had asked Deputy Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein for more funding for his investigation into possible Russian ties to the Trump campaign, prompting Trump to fire Comey, acting FBI Director McCabe told the Senate Intelligence Committee on Thursday that the FBI did not ask for additional funding. And this is a tweet from Cheryl Atkinson. Comey's number 2 unequivocally states that, contrary to widespread reports, FBI did not ask for more funding for Trump-Russia probe before firing. It is not clear whether McCabe was denying that Comey asked for more resources in general, or whether he was parsing the matter and saying that Comey didn't ask for money apart from other help. Comey himself stated that he had asked for more resources when he spoke to legislators. McCabe added that he thought the investigation didn't need any more help, with McCabe saying, quote, I strongly believe the Russian investigation is adequately resourced. So you've got a little bit of conflicting statements there from Comey and the acting FBI director. Comey said that he did request more resources. The now acting FBI director said that he did not. So again, there's definitely some craziness going on behind the scenes. We're going to have to wait a little while to probably get the full details on a lot of this stuff. But there's certainly a lot of accusations being thrown around, a lot of anonymous sources being used, and when that happens and there's sort of this media flurry, you got to really be careful and take things with a grain of salt. And so this all gets painted as, Trump axing Comey because he was getting close to, the Russian investigation was heating up and Comey was really starting to dig in. There's not a whole lot of evidence of that. There is, there were some subpoenas that were issued to Mike Flynn. It is still an ongoing investigation, and that's one thing that's definitely key to note. It's still an ongoing investigation. James Comey himself was not conducting the investigation. It was rank and file members in the FBI who are still digging away at the investigation. And like the now acting FBI director said, Trump did nothing to impede the investigation. Comey did not request additional funding. although he may have requested additional resources in some other ways, perhaps. And it's just a complete hoax that Trump got rid of Comey because of the Russian investigation. For another reason, a big reason, because Comey himself told Trump that he was not under investigation. So Trump himself is actually not a part of the Russian probe. It's the Trump campaign and maybe certain members of the Trump campaign, people like Mike Flynn, people like Roger Stone, people like Carter Page, people like Paul Manafort. Those are people that are under investigation. Trump himself is not a part of the investigation, and that comes from the former FBI director, James Comey himself. So, and of course, as far as we know, there is no evidence of collusion. Still zero evidence of collusion. More than likely, no additional funding was requested. Trump did not try to impede the investigation in any way. And the Deputy Attorney General, the guy who wrote the letter that was right before Trump firing Comey, that Trump got right before firing Comey, that helped to influence his decision, the acting Attorney General is a guy who is seen as somebody who is praised in a bipartisan fashion. People across the board, both Republican and Democrat, both give him praise. They say that he is impartial, and they say that he is definitely a good person for this job. He was actually confirmed by most of the Senate. I think it was like 92 of the 100 senators confirmed him or something like that. So he's not exactly a partisan hack. And this is the guy who came up with the letter saying that Comey was not fit to be the FBI director based on his record, especially his determination to not indict or recommend Hillary Clinton be indicted in July. And then, of course, there were multiple things since then that proved that he was incompetent as the FBI director. Trump has now come out and said that he had decided to fire Comey before he got the recommendation from the Deputy Attorney General. Everybody is freaking out and saying that this is Trump flip-flopping because Trump tweeted that that he accepted the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General. And then after that, he came out and he said that he had already decided to fire Comey. But basically, what that means is they all agreed, basically, is what that means. They all agreed to fire Comey. They were all on the same page. What Trump says is that he decided to give Comey a chance and leave him on as FBI director, and the actions that he's taken, in the months, since Trump has been sworn in, have proven that he, to Trump, is not somebody that should continue to, be the head of the FBI. So you have things like Comey recently coming out and saying that a bunch of emails, classified emails, were forwarded to Anthony Weiner's laptop from Huma Abedin. Then it turns out that that's actually not the case. There wasn't that many emails at all. So there's just, situation after situation after situation that Comey gets involved in or puts himself in that shows that he is not competent to be the head of the FBI, the director of the FBI. There was almost all Democrats agreed that he should be fired. Almost all Republicans agreed that he should be fired. People in the media agreed that he should be fired. Everybody wanted Comey to be fired. And it was only once Trump actually fired him that people say that it is a total mystery and that the timing is so odd and that his story is flip-flopping and that, Comey was requesting more money and that, Trump was trying to impede the investigation. There's just all these allegations being thrown out there. A lot of them are either completely overblown or just completely false. Um, the bottom line is Comey was incompetent. He needed to be fired. It's good that he was fired. The timing is not suspicious. He wanted to get input from his attorney general and his deputy attorney general, and he got that input. They all agreed. They were all on the same page. Comey got fired. That's really all there is to it. And I think Trump knows what he's doing in a lot of ways, and I think Trump actually does get some enjoyment out of completely trolling the media and trolling the Democrats. And I gotta say, sometimes it actually is pretty hilarious. So, right after firing Comey, Trump actually met with several Russian officials and had them come to the White House, including the Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak, who is, of course, the guy who Mike Flynn was talking to that made him, basically be the center of this whole gigantic controversy about him discussing sanctions. And so Trump, invites these guys to the White House, and the media just freaks out, absolutely freaks out. And it's just a classic case of Trump absolutely trolling the media and trolling the Democrats, because this is totally normal activity that the Democrats are freaking out about. The media is freaking out about. The president is supposed to meet with foreign leaders. He should have met with Putin sooner than, he should have met with Putin already. He should have met with more Russian officials already. The point of, having a president and, operating within diplomacy is to have good relations with other countries. You can't do that if you never actually interact with them. So, it's good to see this happening, and it's just hilarious to see the media and the Democrats completely freaking out about it. So this is from the New York Times. With awkward timing, Trump meets top Russian official. What a day for President Trump's first face-to-face meeting with a top Russian official. Only hours after dismissing James Comey as director of the FBI, amid an investigation into the Trump campaign's contacts with Russian officials, the president met with Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov at the White House. The Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak, best known to many Americans as the man who discussed lifting sanctions on Russia with Mr. Trump's former national security advisor, was also in the Oval Office for the meeting. The world's only glimpse of this session came from the Russian news agency TASS, which distributed photos of the meeting with a grinning Mr. Trump shaking hands with the two visitors. No reporters were allowed to ask questions, though they were ushered in minutes later for Mr. Trump's session with Henry A. Kissinger, the former Secretary of State. And of course, you've now got wild conspiracy theories coming out from the left about how the Russians might have planted devices in the White House because there was no reporters allowed in there. Just complete absurdity, even though, of course, they went through routine security checks and everything else. I mean, it's just complete, utter insanity coming from the left right now. The firing of Mr. Comey was the main subject from the start. When Mr. Tillerson greeted his Russian counterpart in the diplomatic reception room on the 7th floor of the State Department, a reporter shouted a question about whether Mr. Comey's dismissal cast a shadow on the meeting. Mr. Lavrov, known for his puckish sense of humor, shot back, "Was he fired? You're kidding me. You're kidding." He then disappeared into Mr. Tillerson's office. So pretty funny. I mean, clearly the Russians just absolutely trolling the media with this. I mean, to the Russians, here in the United States, it's obviously, many Americans know that the Russian collusion narrative is completely false, completely overblown, completely overstated, and it's basically a joke to many people. But I think in Russia, I think it's probably the next level. I actually saw a video clip of Vladimir Putin, who just finished a hockey game, I guess, and he was being asked about FBI Director Comey being fired, and he basically just laughed it off and said that it was just completely ridiculous because the reporter was implying that it might harm Russian-United States relations and cast a shadow over the investigation and all this other stuff. And Putin basically just laughed it off and said it's all just completely ridiculous. So I think to Russians, this whole thing really just is a complete 100% joke and makes us look like total fools. So that's just wonderful. Thank you, Democrats. And just to show how much of a Russian agent Donald Trump is, here's an article from Fox News. Russian fighter jet flies close to U.S. Navy aircraft, official says. And of course, tensions have been heating up with the Russians militarily for basically the entire time that Donald Trump has been in office, because he's such a good little Russian agent. Of course, famously, you had the strike in Syria, which where we launched around 60 Tomahawk missiles into an air base in Syria, basically completely rendering the air base unusable. And that prompted the Russians to scrap an agreement with our Air Force, where we coordinated our flight paths, so we didn't basically fly into each other, and also prompted them to move a battleship closer to our ships in the region, with the intent of actually possibly shooting down further Tomahawk missiles that are launched from our ships. And then you've also had these multiple occasions of Russian military aircraft flying really close to some of our United States military battleships and stations and aircraft. They flew really close to Alaskan airspace a couple weeks ago with several different aircraft, one or two of which were actually nuclear capable. So there's been a lot of tension going on, and this is just another example of that. An armed Russian fighter jet flew alarmingly close to the U.S. Navy reconnaissance aircraft flying in the Black Sea on Tuesday, just one day before Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov visited Washington. The Russian jet came just as close as 20 feet to the American aircraft and remained that close for 5 minutes, a U.S. defense official told Fox News. The Russian jet was carrying 6 air-to-air missiles under its wings, making this episode highly provocative, quote-unquote, one official told Fox News. It's very rare for a Russian jet to intercept a U.S. aircraft with, visibly armed, officials said. So just another example of hostility between the United States and Russia ratcheting up. Of course, the American media and Democrats continue to say that Donald Trump is somehow, some way, a Russian agent. Completely, totally absurd. And now I want to move on to Real Clear Politics, where we can see who somebody, one of the potential new FBI directors might be, because there is an official shortlist out now. Okay. From ABC News. Trump's list of candidates to replace former FBI Director Comey includes Ray Kelly. Somehow I swapped the two stories that I wanted to do. I don't know how I did that. I put my second to last story before my last story. Oops. Anyways, President Trump is considering 11 candidates to replace former FBI Director James Comey, senior White House sources with direct knowledge of the process confirmed to ABC News. The White House has already started having conversations with some of the candidates, but sources caution that the full list is fluid and could change. ABC News learned that Senator John Cornyn, Republican Texas, former Assistant Attorney General Alice Fisher, Judge Michael Garcia of the New York Court of Appeals, and acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe are expected to be interviewed Saturday by Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, with others to follow in the coming days. Here is the full list of candidates being considered for the post, listed in no particular order. The list was first reported by Fox News, with Ray Kelly, former New York City Police Commissioner, Mike Rogers, former White House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Rogers worked as an FBI agent but retired in 2005. Alice Fisher, former Assistant Attorney General. Representative Trey Gowdy, who personally is the person I think would be best suited for the job. I'd really like to see him in that position, although some people, there's multiple people on this list who I think are more than qualified. John Cornyn, Senate Majority Whip, Republican, Texas. Paul Abbott, Executive Assistant Director for the Criminal Cyber Response and Services Branch of the FBI. Michael Garcia, former New York prosecutor, now Associate Judge on New York Court of Appeals. John Suthers, Mayor of Colorado Springs. Michael Luttig, former federal appellate court judge and now Executive Vice President of Boeing. Larry Thompson, former Deputy Attorney General under George W. Bush. And Andrew McCabe, the current acting FBI director. So there's a couple pretty good names on that list. I think Trey Gowdy would probably be the best. In my point of view, I really like I like the way that he handled the Benghazi hearings. I think that he really is somebody who is all about upholding the law. I think he's somebody who would put sort of partisan politics and his personal bias aside and really just do what he was supposed to do in terms of just following the law. So, but again, I think there's multiple people on that list that would be good. Ray Kelly seems like he'd be a good pick as well. Although I know there are some concerns about him. He supported stop and frisk that concerns some people who are on the libertarian side of things. And now I want to go to, this is the story I was going to read. I accidentally flipped the last two stories that I was going to read. So this is the one from Real Clear Politics, and what this is the ultimate Democratic hypocrisy. This sums it all up. There's a ton of Democrats out there who have said they wanted Comey fired and now say that it's horrible that he was fired, but no one just encapsulates that utter insanity and total hypocrisy quite as much as Maxine Waters. I mean, this woman has basically become a cartoon character. I mean, she's a hero to people on the left, but she is basically a cartoon character and a political hack of the highest order. A woman who just basically, I mean, knows nothing. I don't know what is under that James Brown wig, if you know what I'm saying, but I think she's, I think she's a couple agents short of a Russian conspiracy. So she is just totally insane, and she keeps getting propped up by the media and others as sort of this voice of resistance against Trump, and it's just totally laughable. And she decided to come out and say a statement that is basically straight out of George Orwell's 1984. So from Real Clear Politics, Maxine Waters: I don't support Trump firing Comey. I would support Hillary Clinton firing Comey. NBC's Peter Alexander grills Representative Maxine Waters, Democrat, California, for her displeasure at President Trump firing FBI Director James Comey after she had announced in January that he had lost all credibility after attending a classified briefing conducted by the now former director. In March, Waters issued a press release that read, Comey, quote, advanced Russia's misinformation campaign. Quote, I do not necessarily support the president's decision, Waters said. Quote, I think that if the president would have fired him when he first came in, he would not be in the position now where he is trying to make up a story about why it does not meet the smell test. Maxine Waters, I don't think you meet the smell test. However, in the interview Wednesday on MSNBC, asked if she would be okay with hypothetical President Hillary Clinton dismissing Comey from his position, Waters said yes. Quote, if she had won the White House, I believe that given what he did to her and what he tried to do, she should have fired him. Yes, the California Democrat said. When Hillary Clinton should be thanking Comey every night before she goes to bed that she's not, sleeping in a prison cot because James Comey single-handedly saved her from that fate. So totally ridiculous. Quote, she would have fired him, but he shouldn't have fired him. Wow. This is why I'm confused, Alexander said to Waters. No, you're not confused, Waters told Alexander. I am confused, Alexander reported. Alexander responded. So just a completely bizarre, hilarious back and forth between, Maxine Waters and this reporter. In this interview, she just is, spinning around in circles trying to explain why a FBI director who she says is incompetent and said that should be fired gets fired, but then she says that's a bad thing. Oh, but if Hillary Clinton was president, then that would have been okay for him to be fired. It's just totally bizarre. There's no real logic to it. Of course there isn't. I mean, we're talking about Democratic talking points here, which is just that Trump fired Comey to interfere with the Russian investigation, which, again, as we've gone over, makes zero sense because Trump himself, as Comey said, is actually not part of the investigation. There is still to this day zero evidence of any collusion between any members of the Trump campaign and Russian officials. There is just nothing there. The idea that Trump impeded with the investigation or did anything to do so was shot down by the acting FBI director. He also shot down the idea that the FBI had requested more funding for the Russian probe. So just, it's completely bizarre that the Democrats are flip-flopping this much. I mean, it's incredible. They literally went from, Comey is, horrible, Comey should be fired, to him getting fired. Now all of a sudden, he should have stayed on, even though they said he was incompetent. So, apparently the Democrats want a incompetent, in their own words, FBI director overseeing investigations. Totally bizarre, makes zero sense, and it just exposes, again, the complete and utter hypocrisy of the Democratic Party. So, if you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, please subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment if you've got something that you'd like to say, if you've got any suggestions or any constructive criticism, or you just want to spark up a conversation or chime in any way. I'd like to hear from you. Also, I'll upload the audio version of this onto SoundCloud, and you can follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook, and I will have the links for all that in the description. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.